Hello everyone! In our journey of ranking all Spider-Man games with the help of my Stasucritic system, details of which are in the pinned comment, we have reached the year 2002, when the Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire in the role of Peter Parker was released. Obviously, this means that there would be games made based on the movie, as that's the way things worked back then. If you think about it, you really couldn't have an action or adventure film without a game to go alongside it. Far from all of them were great, mainly because many movie-based games had to be developed in very tight timelines, with a lot of bureaucracy slowing down the process even more. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and see if Spider-Man games made in this era fall under that said trend. Developed by Treyarch, the best way to describe the game is that it is 2000 Spider-Man on steroids. The basic principles behind the mechanics are the same, only there's more depth and polish. The combat is still based on punching and kicking, but now there's a whole combo system with different moves requiring various button combinations, and you find new moves during levels. Sometimes the fighting can feel clunky, but overall it's fun. Swinging still works like you're a drone that attaches webs to thin air, only now you have total control of your movement during that process, as well as a new speed-up function that makes you go faster, but it's more difficult to turn. As such, there is a new combination of these two aspects, with aerial combat gaining a far bigger importance. You can even land on some flying bosses to duke it out on the move, and the new lock-on functionality finally lets you normally keep track of enemies. That said, some problems still remain. While you can control the camera this time, it's not exactly comfortable to do so because you can rotate it only horizontally. And given how wonky the camera can still be, one can really feel the lack of vertical control. Then, though this game adds a dedicated dodge mechanic, you're unlikely to ever use it. Because to do so, you have to push either the stick or D-pad, whatever you didn't choose as your primary movement method, and press jump. It's unlikely you're ever going to move fingers fast enough to properly dodge, better just jump out of the way. But jumping is still a pretty inconsistent method of avoiding damage, so if you're aiming to get scores in the no damage categories at the end of levels, you might want to reconsider, honestly. Due to the combat mechanics gaining bigger prominence, there is more levels that focus on brawling. Because of this, in the first third of the game especially, there is admittedly less variety than in the previous Spider-Man titles, although later on things get much better with levels where you have to climb a booby-trapped clock tower, race against time to disarm bombs, some actually not horrible stealth levels, and even a fight with a huge robot. That last one, while an impressive battle in terms of scope and much easier once you realize just how far impact webs that you can launch even mid-air can fly, probably feels the most out of place, as stylistically the game tries to go for the same semi-realism as the movie does, with character designs reminiscent of what one could potentially see on the theater screen. And not only that, the overall feeling is very reminiscent of the movie. Especially the music. It was written specifically for the game and doesn't use any leitmotifs from the film, but you wouldn't say that when hearing it. Fits so well stylistically. What I do appreciate in terms of direction is how the game doesn't try to replicate the story of the movie, but tells broadly similar events in its own way that would fit the game more. For example, there is a whole subplot about Oscorp trying to hunt down Spider-Man to help with a project that would lead to Green Goblin's creation, and then we eventually infiltrate the company itself to find out who stands behind the villain. All this didn't happen in the film, but serves the needs of the game. And before this whole main story, we have an origin section, followed by a sort of daily life of Spider-Man part, which is how additional criminals like Shocker and the Vulture were woven in. That said, while I commend the direction and how the game tries to connect the dots, the story can be told in a somewhat abrupt way. There's holes and details missing, as well as a quite ridiculous ending with Spider-Man and Mary Jane kissing near Norman Osborn's dead body. Yeesh. The writing itself is generally speaking good, though I can't say that the voice acting is consistent. Willem Dafoe and Tobey Maguire actually reprise their film roles, and while Dafoe does an absolutely stellar job, Maguire sort of feels, I can't say bored, it's just that he has a very dry delivery which doesn't work with all lines that are given to him. For example, on paper, this sounds better than in action, although can still be funny.
So you must be Quilt Man, Padded Pete, Mr. Triple Ply? Oh, I've got it! The cushion.
But this here is comedic gold with performance and writing perfectly fitting each other.
I'm gonna have some nasty words for that creep on the glider when I catch him. But first, I'm gonna go somewhere quiet and have a heart attack.
One of the more impressive parts is the post-game content, and not in terms of costume unlockables and bonus levels and stuff like that, which there's not much of that. But you can unlock the Green Goblin, and it's not just a skin, oh no. It is a fully controllable character with his own set of mechanics, as well as written dialogues in levels to sort of frame everything like you're playing as Harry Osborn. Honestly, the read-on story doesn't really make much sense, but that's not the point. Playing as the Green Goblin is pretty cool to say the least. So, the Spider-Man movie game is going to get a Stasocritic rating of 78. It is not as creative or wholesome as Neversoft's 2000 Spider-Man game, but it is more polished gameplay-wise and still very enjoyable. When I was a child, I played both games religiously, though of course that doesn't affect the ranking, just on a side note to showcase how both titles are very good in their own ways. One last quick note, if frame rate matters to you on consoles, PlayStation 2 version runs at 30 FPS while others run at 60, keep that in mind if that's important for your choice of platform. The Xbox version of Spider-Man gets a separate entry because it actually has 2 whole levels exclusive to the platform, with an additional villain in the form of Kraven the Hunter weaved into the plot, and I feel that's a pretty significant difference. The levels are actually quite interesting. One is a trap-based gauntlet and the second is a cat-and-mouse style boss battle, all while you're suffering from poison. However, since these levels essentially have the same positives and negatives as all the other ones, I can't say that they outright improve the experience, it's just more content. In fact, their placement within the story is weird, interrupting a goblin-focused sequence of levels. It still sort of works, but maybe it would be better had they been put in before the Green Goblin levels. And from a personal perspective, even though I like the levels, I'd say the game as a whole actually flows better without them. So I will assign the same Stasocritic rating of 78, due to new content neither significantly improving the overall experience nor making it worse. However, in the list I will put it beneath the other platforms, as I think those versions overall flow better than this one. Now, the Game Boy Advance movie tie-in developed by Digital Eclipse is an absolutely different beast, of course. Visually, it is a very expressive game with fantastic over-the-top animations, however this cannot be said about the sound and music. The sound assets are of a very low quality and music is repetitive, which brings down the aesthetic part of the experience. And that's the only really positive part of the experience, because the rest is meh. It's alright, it's fine, working and unremarkable. The game controls just fine, but there are some mechanics that are really uncomfortable, like the web zipping, as well as some stuff is just missing that would be really useful in the levels. Like there's no way to increase your altitude during web swinging, which sometimes can put you in unwinnable situations. Outside of these instances, the levels themselves are fine, but are very boring. Almost everything requires you to find a set of objects, sometimes in the form of hostages, all around the place. Doesn't help that the design of areas most of the time feels pretty haphazard and random, with nothing hinting at where you could possibly miss one of the goals. Bosses are also just okay. The narrative technically tells a connected story, but it feels like the levels came first and then the game tried to somehow connect them together with the narrative, you know? Really, the only remarkable thing about this game are the bonus levels that attempt to create swimming in three-dimensional space, quite impressive on a technical level. But other than that, well, Game Boy Advance version of Spider-Man gets a Metacritic rating of 43, which in the context of my system doesn't mean a game is bad, it's just it's fine, adequate, you might enjoy it, but there is nothing that outright deserves attention. I actually played this one as a kid as well, but never finished it and never replayed it, and now looking at it, I can see why I was much more eager to get back to the Spider-Man movie game on PC. This title by India Games is actually not really based on the movie, although it does feature Green Goblin as the main villain. Now, I'm of the opinion that Java-based mobile titles of old are not as bad as people tend to think they are, but this mobile Spider-Man game doesn't exactly help my case. It has issues similar to the Game Boy Advance title in that it's plain and unremarkable. Except this time it also doesn't feel as aesthetically pleasing despite reusing plenty of assets from Mysterious Menace, but they don't quite work here. So the title will get a Metacritic rating of 34. It's playable and it's more of a boring game than a bad one, which of course doesn't make it any less disappointing. Okay, so this part has covered only 4 games, and really it's because thanks to the success of the movie and the games based on it, the second Spider-Man film released in 2004 just went all in on video game adaptations. There's a lot of them. Not 2, not 3, not even 5. More than that. So I had a choice, either cover a part of Spider-Man 2 games in this video and the rest later, or cut this part a bit short by focusing only on the period before 2004 and then also go all in and discuss all Spider-Man 2 games in a single longer chapter. I suppose it is quite obvious what choice I have made, so I'll see you next time, but I warn you, the next video might turn out to be quite controversial among Spider-Man video game fans, so be prepared.